Hello and welcome to this edition of Iron Sports, and I am Jermaine Brown. In this edition, we look at the evolving issue of intellectual property rights in sports. We'll delve into the issues and provide some solutions as we look at sports as an industry. As usual, let us know what you think by heading to our Facebook page, Iron Sports JA. We'll take a break, but stick around. When we come back, we're going to be looking at some intellectual property rights. Soon come. And welcome back to Iron Sports. The evolution of sports and the high success ratio of the industry has prompted a change into how the major stakeholders look at the market and its implications. Sports has bypassed the stage where it is seen as just participation of athletes, but now as much more of a lucrative venture. So joining us on Iron Sports to give a greater insight into this development and awareness of protecting sporting property and elements are Executive Director of the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, Lily Claire Bellamy, and a businessman and sports marketer, no stranger to Iron Sports, Chris Derring. Welcome, lady and gentlemen, to Iron Sports.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Did the producer give you your treats? He's supposed to, make sure when we're done, you get that. All right, Chris?
What?
And Lily Claire.
Which
Because,
treats?
yeah, man, you're supposed to get your treats, man. That's what we do here in Iron Sports, afterwards.
So it's a surprise.
I'm going to hold you to it.
All right, now, let me begin with Lily Claire. The annual Intellectual Property Week just concluded, and with a strategic feature that you had there on sports. What were some of the main talking points that came out and that you'll be working with hereafter?
Okay, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us. Well, the week focused on intellectual property and sports. April the 26th is recognized in the 192 member states of the World Intellectual Property Organization as Intellectual Property Day. We make a week of the celebration. So during the week, we focused on different aspects of intellectual property rights and how those aspects touch on concern on sport. In fact, I have a textbook right here, which was one of the highlights of the week.
Hold it up for us, let us see.
We launched this book.
Yeah.
So it's
Commonwealth Caribbean Sports Law.
exactly Commonwealth Caribbean Sports Law. So this is the first text on sports law from the point of view of the Caribbean. And there's a whole chapter in here on intellectual property and sports. So it touches on quite a number of topical issues in the region. One that a number of Jamaicans may be familiar with, the whole issue of broadcast rights. So TVJ has secured the broadcast rights for a number of sporting events. The securing of those broadcast rights is one area of intellectual property rights,
Right.
copyright. So when you secure those rights, what you have done is, depending on the terms of your contract, you have the exclusive right. That's what an intellectual property right gives you, an exclusive right to do with in the manner that you choose. It is your right. So if you get a right and I wanted a right, then I'm going to have to come to you to find out if you're willing to allow me to encroach on your rights. But it wouldn't be encroaching then because you would give me permission.
Right.
And if we think, well, we just had the Boys and Girls Athletics Championship. That's a really excellent idea of intellectual property at work. We have a major Jamaican brand who has sponsored the ISA Boys and Girls Athletic Championships. So every time there's a race, whose logo do you see? The major sponsor. And every time we mention the name, we said the Grace Kennedy ISA Boys and Girls Athletic Championships. So you're tying in a trademark with copyright at that simple level. The people who are taking part in the sports, the gears that they wear, that's an example also of a design right. If you go back in history, in the development of athletic footwear, it wasn't what it is now. In the olden days, the person who invented the studs that go into a football boot, that was a patent. That's another example of an intellectual property right. So you have all of the intellectual property rights in the area of sports. What we need to do is to look at it and to recognize that the IP in an event is an opportunity for you to earn from the event.
Exactly.
The other thing is, I'm really passionate about it, so I can go on.
Go ahead.
If you look at sports jerseys, in fact, I saw a young man going into the bank the other day, and I said to him, do you mind if I take a photo? He had on a Man U jersey.
Yeah, Man U, not
Poor
Chelsea.
fellow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, he had on a Man U. I didn't see anybody else in any
a
other.
Chelsea man, all right.
No Chelsea, but it was Man U. But the significant thing about it was it had the brands of a major car company, and there was also another brand on it. So all of these people are, and then down at the bottom it said Climate Cool, because now the technology has
Right.
developed so that it wicks the moisture away from your body, so you're able to perform better, just like with the swimsuits that the swimmers wear to
Right.
keep the water off, so you're able to go through the water faster, even
Headgear.
exactly.
So it's a major feature of the sporting industry. Chris, let me bring you in here. You would have been, for instance, at the Cricket World Cup in 2007. You were part of the local organizing. Matter of fact, you headed the local organizing committee.
The regional.
The
the
regional.
Whole World Cup,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. In fact, what are some of the issues you would have encountered throughout your years in dealing with major sporting projects, locally, regionally, when it comes on to intellectual property rights and persons making use and taking advantage of it?
Well, first of all, the entire landscape has so dramatically changed. One of the fear factors we had in going to host such an event like a Cricket World Cup, which is the third largest global sporting event, was the fact that in the Caribbean, we knew very little about proper sports intellectual property. And that's one of the things you have to look out for if you're hosting any major event, is how do you protect that intellectual property? If you remember, you're hosting this event, or the Olympic Games or Football World Cup, you're hosting on behalf of hundreds of member countries,
Right.
all of whom are expecting to collect their fair share of that intellectual property sale, whether it be broadcast rights, media rights, sponsorship rights, etc. So if you don't deliver, those countries don't get their share.
Right.
And that's the liability of hosting these massive events. So a big fear, as we look through the length and breadth of the host venue agreement, there was this term world-class standards. And you had to do everything to world-class standards. But of course, we were 9 countries. So how do you protect intellectual property across 9 countries in the same way? How do you guard against ambush marketing,
Right.
guard against stolen broadcast rights, because technology was evolving, so the internet had started to grow. And so we came up with the idea, look, let us draft sunset legislation, special laws that had to be passed by all 9 countries. If you want to host, you have to turn
signatory
this
to that.
into an act
Right.
in your country
Right.
so that we could police these rights. And if you understand what took place in 1999 in England and 2003 in South Africa with their hosting of the Cricket World Cup, because when you don't deliver rights, the liabilities come down the pipe, and somebody has to pay that pipe. And usually it's the host, if they haven't delivered that event or delivered particular rights or not protected it in the way it should have been protected, you get financial claims. In the 1999 England World Cup, the financial claims were about 9.2 million US. Wow. In the 2003 World Cup in South Africa, the financial claims were 42 million US. The financial claims in the Caribbean after our World Cup was 0, because we delivered
Exactly.
across the region on all the intellectual property. So it was part and parcel due to that sunset legislation, but one of the legacies of that has been, I think, we now more understand terms like ambush marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody used that term really before the Cricket World Cup, and we had to come around and do all these symposiums and seminars and teach people, look, you're not going to be able to go into the stadium, all 20 of you, with a Grace branded shirt,
Right.
because Grace is not a sponsor of the event, and you'll be deemed to have ambushed the
Right.
event.
Right.
And so that's one of the great legacies that I think now people are much more attuned to sports intellectual property, the value of them, and the liabilities that you can incur if you transgress those rights.
Claire, sorry,
That's all
what
right.
are some of the common infringements that you'd have noticed when it comes down to athletes and organizations in ignoring or neglecting intellectual property rights?
Well, I think in terms of our athletes, and I must say, we have come a long way now. We have quite a number of sporting clubs and associations in Jamaica. If we look at track and field, quite a few of our track and field athletes have taken the time to come in to the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, and they have registered trademarks, not only in track and field, but also in cricket. So we have those who have protected their trademarks. And the thing to remember, you know, is when you're at the height of your game, everybody's interested in you. But after you stop running and you stop competing or you stop playing football, you still have an opportunity to earn from that reputation. But what you need to do is to take the time to decide, okay, this is what I'm going to specialize in, and I'm going to protect that area so that I can do it. What we have seen in Jamaica, and it was just mentioned by Chris, the whole area, and some people plead ignorance, but I'm not really sure if it's ignorance, of ambush marketing. So someone will sponsor an event and somebody will innocently come in something, clothing or some form of paraphernalia that's not associated with the event, and then they'll say they didn't know. The other thing, what we need to encourage...
Hold that thought, because I don't want to be ambushed by my producer. So we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue looking at intellectual property rights in sports and how athletes and organizations are benefiting or not benefiting from these rights. Soon come.